Aloha, and welcome to Betty's Real Estate Corner, brought to you by Coldwell Banker, Sakamoto Properties. In the studio today with me is one of my most favorite people in the world, Ethan Kaleiopu. Welcome, Ethan.
Hi.
Ethan worked with us for a while and then went with another company. I just don't know why. However, he is still our very best friend. So today we thought we would do a real estate show together. He's got some possible listings that he can tell us about a little bit. We're going to kind of jump around from one thought to another just because that's more of what we've been doing these days. Ethan and his family, and I just didn't ask you this, but they did lose their home, in the fires, and it's been really hard on the whole family. Is there anything you want to say about it, or would you rather avoid it?
No, I mean, we can talk about it.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little about what happened and how it all went together, for as little or as much as you want to say.
For sure. My family, my mom had a generational home in Wahikuli, and my Kaleiopu side, my grandfather had a generational home in Lahaina, right by behind Wharf. And we lost both of those properties, as well as my home that I just moved in 3 days before I found a rental, and lost that day of. And I think the biggest thing that I've learned, and just to keep it really simple, is that time is really precious. And if there's something on your mind that you want to do, then do it. And if you want to say it, then say it. That's perfect.
Because that is the hardest thing that any of us learn. If there's something you want to say it. And I think probably that also says, let's always think first before we speak.
Oh, absolutely.
but having said that, I think it's a blessing almost always when you say what you're thinking, because you can always afterwards say, maybe I pushed that a little bit, maybe this, maybe that, if you feel it later. But I think saying it really helps your mind.
Time is really
your
precious,
brain.
yeah.
Time is precious. It, the thing I said a little while ago, when we got here, I was talking about, and for the different shows, I've always kept different things that I love or believe in or whatever. But the thing, I only got a minute, only 60 seconds in it. Forced upon me, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it. But it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. And I think of that all the time. For some reason, it's something that really matters to me from the standpoint of time. And I think wasting time,
absolutely,
theoretically, is okay, if you're kind of in a way utilizing the wasted time, if you're enjoying yourself, if you're with friends, and right. It doesn't mean you've got to be working all the time. But I think,
be mindful of the time.
Be mindful of the time, whatever it is. When you're enjoying the time, right, be mindful of that. And it works for all of us, because right. I really think that is key. I think that really matters a whole lot.
I agree.
So, we mentioned a little while ago, we are different companies now, but you were mentioning you had a listing in Oahu.
I do, yes.
That was kind of interesting.
Nice property. One of my clients, they're local investors, and they specialize in putting local families into homes. We rehabbed the property in Kailua on Oahu, 315 Oneava. It's a 5-bed, 2.5-bath property, really beautifully done right there on the main road of Oneava. It's listed at 1549. Great property for a family. Or if you work from home, there's extra office space and a lot of good space to utilize in it. So if you have any questions, 315 Oneava.
What's the price now of that?
1549.
Mm-hmm. And exactly where is it located?
Literally downtown
Other people know
Kailua.
that. Oh, really?
Yeah, literally downtown Kailua, right on the main road of Oneava. So on that main strip right there, which is really nice because if you exit just 5 minutes, you're pretty much right there at the exit to go to downtown Honolulu or West Oahu. So really convenient.
Yeah. We're still doing primarily, or I am, Kapalua. So I'm kind of dedicated there. All of my own listings have sold, and we're now kind of trying to get ready to rebuild some of that. Yeah. But I think we'll rebuild pretty quickly. But anyone thinking Kapalua, call us, 808-870-7062 will get to me. To get to Roy Sakamoto, 808-870-7060, or to get to Ethan Kaleiopu with, what's your company?
Compass Ohana Real Estate.
Compass Ohana Real Estate. What's your phone number?
808-269-8033.
Okay, we'll repeat those a couple of times because a lot of us don't remember things or don't take the time to write it down. I think it is all pretty interesting. Going back, is there anything else from the fire day that you'd want to talk about a little bit, or your family and how everybody got out of Lahaina? Is it such old news you don't want to talk about?
No, not at all.
Okay.
I mean, honestly, and when I talk about it, it was a very crazy experience, but definitely a very eye-opening experience at the same time. And the way that things fell into place, the way that they did, I can't question how or why it happened, but it did. I remember, I woke up that morning and things were just kind of really weary, and didn't really, something in my gut told me that something was wrong, but I couldn't figure out what it was. There was already no electricity, our phones were down. I remember getting into my car early that morning and driving to my mom's house, and the kids were home from school and they're playing card games and they're just trying to make use of their time. And I remember leaving there, and then I drove to my papa's house. I was just very anxious, trying to figure out what it was in my stomach that wasn't sitting right with me. My brother Dustin was still living, or he was staying with me at my house that I just moved into, and he was still sleeping. And I remember going back, trying to wake him up and saying, maybe we should go down to Papa's house. There's no electricity. Let's hang out with him for a while. And we did. So we went back down to Holly Street to my Papa's house where he was by himself. My dad was in Kapalua working. And it was just a really weird experience. I remember hearing a lot of different noises, and we kind of just let it play out for a little bit. We ended up taking a nap, which to me, I thought was really weird. And if you know my grandpa, once he's out of his bedroom in the morning, he's there till he goes to sleep. And he stayed in the living room pretty much the whole day until we all decided to take a nap. He went back into his room, went into his bed, which is really weird. He only do that if during the day if he's sick. He took a nap for an hour. Dustin and I both took a nap for an hour. The minute that we woke up, an hour later, it was almost like game time. I remember walking outside, looking across the street, and everything was just really dark and gray. I know all across the street was, starting to burn. Ran across the street to our neighbor's house. I asked them if they're evacuating yet. They said, they don't think it's really that serious. It was just kind of small fires, not really knowing what was on the opposite side. So I remember getting in my car and I drove down Front Street, and I went as far as to the outlets, and I seen everything just in disarray. I sped back. I remember climbing curbs, going straight home. By the time I got home, my brother and my papa were packing up and leaving, and I had family from Molokai that was visiting at the same time, and they were leaving Big Island to go back to Molokai, and what happened was their plane was canceled, so they ended up staying on Maui, and they were in Kahului at the time, and they got stuck at Launiapoko. So my cousin's wife actually seen the fire from above and ran her brother-in-law ran about a mile to our house, helped us pack up, and it took us about an hour to get out of there. During that whole time, had no idea where my mom was. My stepdad didn't know where my dad was. There was no communication. All I knew was that we had to get out of there.
That was, in a way, the hardest part for everybody.
It was.
The lack of communication.
Lack of communication is crazy.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing, too, and me and Dustin learned that is just I remember they left in a separate car and I left in the car, and I specifically said, go up to the bypass at this point and stay there and wait for me because I had to go back in the house and grab something. And he panicked when he was with Papa because when he went down Front Street, he seen everyone going, left to go out and no one was going down right. So he panicked and went the opposite way. He's like, there's no cars down that way. Let me go down that way. But there was no cars going down that way because it was on fire. So for maybe an hour or so, we lost each other. After that, it was really crazy. For 3-4 hours, had no idea where anybody was. And I remember it was getting really dark and late, almost 8 o'clock.
And where were you by then?
We're up on the bypass waiting just to figure out what to do. And some of my family gathered up there, and I just said, it's time that we need to get out of Lahaina. And I was like, we're going to just go to a hotel. I gave my brother my credit card. I said, take Papa, take everybody. I'm going to try to wait a little bit longer for Dad. Just go to the Marriott airport, check into a hotel, and just figure it out. We'll figure it out. I remember waiting for my dad because last I was told was he was passing Wahikuli, but I didn't really know, if he was really going to make it out or not. He had no idea that the fire was happening. He ended up making it to the house, and by the time he got down there, from his story, the cops told him he couldn't go down there, it was on fire. He drove to our house and watched it engulfed in flames, and he had no idea where we were. And he told himself and believed that we were all in there, and we were perished, which he got in his car and he was shaking just in disbelief. And I remember being like perched up right on the bypass with my foot on the brake, and it was crazy. It was so many cars. With my foot on the brake, in drive, ready to go. And I was just watching every car as it passed by, and he had a big lifted truck. And something in my gut again told me that he's going to pass by because he's not going to go back to Kapalua. He's going to leave to go this way. So I waited.
And your dad works at Kapalua.
He works in
yes.
Kapalua. And finally I heard these tires just like on the road, just like rolling. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's him. Right there, 80 miles per hour, he passes me. Went in my car, and I remember just bolting it, flashing my lights, beeping his horn. He pulled over, I pulled over. We fell out of the car, and he was just in tears. And he's like, oh my God, where's everybody? I thought everybody was gone. And it was just so many hours of no communication. I'm like, we're all okay. Everyone's on the other side, but I don't know where mom and my stepdad are. Who ended up leaving. We went to Target. We all met at Target. We bought everything that we knew we needed when we confirmed our house was gone. I remember going to 3 different ATMs in that area, credit advancing every credit card I had, cashing out everything I had in there, not knowing what was going to happen, right? Cash is king. And my cousin Tiare Lawrence, she called my papa and, invited us to her house, and that's where we ended up living for a long period of time. She took care of us. But that experience of getting out there was pretty crazy. And I think it changed a lot of things for me after the fire and just taught me that time is really precious and that sometimes some things are just not as serious as you think that they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, when you think what we've all gone through since then, it's really hard.
Yeah.
We didn't lose anything, but in a way, we lost everything.
Yeah.
The comfort that you had in the homes and the people and who you knew and who was where, and I would have always known where you were on any given day, even though I didn't really know. Yeah. If I dialed 3 phone numbers, even if you didn't answer me, I would find you eventually. It was such a hard day for everybody. We were at Kapalua and most of that time, and we were home. We could actually see the fire from upstairs in our house. And we thought, though, it was in a Kanapali.
Right.
We really thought it was Kanapali. And, we weren't sure exactly where. We really weren't. We thought it was up higher. So you're just kind of hopeful, never thinking that Lahaina was going to be gone when we go to sleep or wake up or what was happening. I
don't think anyone really knew what was, until the next morning everyone woke up and it was like, what really happened.
Yeah. When we woke up, it was like, I would say like 4:30-ish. Went downstairs, and you could still see flames from somewhere. And I don't know, it was just really a freaky thing. We have 2 cats that were totally freaked out.
Yeah.
Everybody was insane. And then we look outside, and we saw people outside that we know that came there. Dr. Eston from Doctors on Call was out there, and he had some friends that had come to his house, and they had been evacuated from the Vintage in Kanapali.
I remember it was getting close there.
Yeah, they were just sitting there. They didn't want to ring our doorbell, but they should have, because, it would have been okay. We had a little hard time with the dogs because we couldn't quite bring these 2 huge dogs into our house, but we were okay with them bringing them out on the lanai, and we got food and water, and everybody came in for a while. And then eventually Norm's house was cleared, so they all ended up going back there. But, it was such a hard thing to just get through that 24-hour period and then do what you can do to help. And I think we all did different things. And it meant a lot to each of us to be able to help someone.
Yeah.
And that kind of still goes on and on and on.
I think it was, I remember coming up to Kapalua to, load up on all of the essentials when they brought that stuff out. And I think the most humbling experience, truthfully, was, prior to the fire, life is good, you're indulging, everything seems great. And the most humbling thing ever was driving to the distribution site in my busted BMW, with nothing else. And you're in that car and you're just kind of thinking, well, some things just really don't matter, because here I am, rolling up, asking for help. And absolutely, I had no problem doing so, but just the realization of some things are just not as serious as we think that they are. So
no, that's
life
true.
is really precious, and it was a very humbling experience, and in a crazy way, I'm kind of grateful for that, and I almost wouldn't change it. For everyone that was lost in the fire, condolences to them. But the experiences, I think, everyone has learned a thing or two from it. Yeah.
I think you're right. Everybody learned a lot from it. I mean, one of the things that we had felt from where we were was that there would be easily 1,000 people would be gone. Easily. You know, it could be 2,000 because we had been watching so much and we weren't hearing any real news. So it was really a hard time trying to understand what could be happening. And then by the time we learned anything, it was probably a day or so later that we were getting any real information.
Right.
There was a place that you could go and climb a hill and sometimes get a call through, but that was probably day 2 or 3.
It was, yeah. I think that's when my mom finally got out. I think it was by Maui Prep is where they were able to make a phone call, and that's when we finally heard from her. I mean, that was crazy not knowing where anyone was, or if, you know, you lost them, or but
yeah, I think it really.
I remember seeing everybody on that hill with those photos of everyone trying to get connection and calling. Yeah,
we had somebody I'm originally from Buffalo, New York, and my family are all there. So one morning at like 4 o'clock in the morning, somebody called, and I had my phone right next to the bed, and it was charged, you know, but we weren't getting any calls. So it, like say, really early in the morning, I got a phone call from one of my sisters, and I jumped up out of bed and I started talking to her. We only had a connection for a little bit, but she knew everything that was happening, and she was giving me an update on what was going on here, stuff that I never could have known at that point. As a matter of fact, I barely believed it, you know, when she said that Lahaina has burned and et cetera, et cetera. And that must have been really day one. And then we had people staying with us at that point that were going back. You know, one of our grandkids and a friend of hers, and they were supposed to be boarding a plane, and they were determined they were going to leave. They had a rental car, and I mean, we finally gave up. I mean, if they wanted to leave, I mean, theoretically they can go. I said, I don't think you'll get out, but they went ahead and left, and they did. I think they let them go through Lahaina because anybody that got out of Lahaina, they were okay. And it was like at 6 o'clock or 5:30 in the morning when they headed that way. Police, fire department, they returned their car to Kihei, the Kihei Auto Rental. Right. Really great people. And so they returned the car, and then they drove them to the airport. One of them actually got on the flight they wanted. The other didn't. But again, very interesting that they got out and they got back. It took them a while. One actually went straight home. The other had to make a couple of stops along the way. But they got out of here and then got, I think, maybe to California and then somewhere else, and then to the Portland area where they were going. So, but it was a lot of little miracles. Right. So, and now here we all are. We're back selling real estate. I think that it's going to be an interesting time. I think that nobody should get pushed into selling a property that's burned, and we don't have any. I don't know that we would take a listing or do anything on one at this time, because I think everybody needs to catch their breath and know what they're doing. So far, I don't even know what to say to that end of the market. Yeah. I don't like hearing all of the, I'm going to say, foreign attorneys that have come in and are taking a stand in all of this. Now, they may be fabulous. I don't really know the answer to that either, but I think there's local attorneys here working really hard, and I would go that route first. And maybe it's not about getting every dollar, but, you know, figuring something out that works for you and your family. And if you can rebuild, I think it's going to be great to rebuild, and don't leave. We've all known a few people that have been able to buy another house somewhere, at least for now, on the other side, or have gone somewhere, but they're going to come back and rebuild. And I think the hardest thing, obviously, is for people who were doing rentals, and the rental market has gone insane. And I don't have any idea how that's going to straighten out. None of us do. Yeah. But hopefully it will, and I think the county should come up with some sort of a product that they can build, and build quickly. You know, Roy is still doing that thing that the owner of the Kapalua golf courses is building 50 houses out there at which would have been the first hole of the old village course. And they're almost together now. It's really been great. It's been difficult. They were given a variety of things that they had to do, which they fought some of them, didn't fight others, but the houses are pretty much finished. And there's going to be a blessing coming up in the not too distant future. And those are going to be for people that worked for the golf course, for the person that's building these. And he's paying for everything himself, the owner of the golf courses. And people will have a home for 5 years, so that they're built as temporary housing. And I've said before in the show, mentioning them, that I think it's important that suddenly on Sunday morning they'll wake up and look around and they know everybody. They know everybody that's in these houses. The kids know one another. They live in a beautiful forest of sorts. And they're tiny houses, but they're going to have a place to live. And too many people have already moved, so I think it's going to be it's going to be hard for everybody. But I think we've just got to all keep praying for one another.
I think one of the great things of that project of when I went to visit it is that a lot of those that are working on the project are also locals that are giving back, and I have a few friends that are on that project, and when I talk to them, they're just very proud and happy to be able to pour love and their expertise into something like that to give back. So the hands that are building it, it's there's a lot of love behind it, and it was nice to have those conversations and see that just kind of giving back to those that they wanted to. And Lahaina is so small, they're the ones that are moving into the houses, really close friends and families to them, and so they're very happy to do the work. So that was really nice to see. I think
so, yeah. I think it's been hard on everybody, but that is I haven't heard that part of the story, but I think that's really great by itself, because they had to end up using union employees there when they had someone all set to build. And then they ended up doing a union thing, which is probably great for everything. And then I bet there was also a lot of volunteer work happening that nobody knew about.
Right.
But they got up there, and it's looking pretty ready, isn't it?
Yeah.
I know Roy's up there today with some people trying to, again, get it down and ready for a blessing.
Right.
Anyway, well, that's been a lot of stuff for today. I don't know if there's anything else that we need to do, but maybe go back to remembering that thing from the beginning. I've only but a minute, only 60 seconds in it, forced upon me, can't refuse it, didn't seek it, didn't choose it, but it's up to me to use it. I must suffer if I lose it, give account if I abuse it. Just a tiny little minute, but eternity is in it. I mean, think of that day and the minutes, I mean, again, we were safe through everything, but for you trying to figure out where to go, how to stop. Someone that we knew from Bank of Hawaii was at the last minute out on the street. She waited. She was the last person that left the bank. And she got out and ended up in her car, and there were like a bunch of cars in front of her. And she's sitting there waiting to move, and all of a sudden she's thinking something's wrong. So she got out of her car, walked up to the car in front of her. Nobody was in it. The car in front of that, nobody was in it. And she walked up like 6 cars, nobody was there. And there was no way to turn around anymore because everybody was stuck. And she ended up in the water for 8 hours with a couple of other people, and I think, again, it's a miracle that the number of people that survived. It looks like we have 1 minute left, so it's here we go. I'm glad that you could come out today.
Thank you.
I hope it was great. Next time we'll do real estate.
Yeah.
We'll come up with more listings and what we're really up to. But I still think it's important to Lahaina. We're almost at a year, which seems impossible to me. And it probably seems like 5 years to you.
It's a long time, but
I love
here we
Hawaii. And this is the greatest song of all time. It's the best. Aloha.